I'm not going to talk about this a whole lot. I really wanted to, but I'm out of time. But I have to a little bit because, and I hesitate because, and I don't really, I do care that people might ridicule, but I'm going to take just a couple minutes to explain it. I was invited by Black Lives Matter leader in Boise to join them on the 21st. Okay? And now the 21st is a Defund the Police rally by Black Lives Matter. Okay? Now I am going to join them. Okay? Now listen. Because I do believe that in many ways the police do need to be defunded. We have become a police state because of the funding that they receive. Now, I want you to understand that most of the funding goes to the federal government, and then the federal government trickles it down to the local, a lot of the funding trickles it down to the local departments. But they don't ever give money for nothing. They make the local departments sign what is called a Memorandum of Understanding, MOUs. They require them. And these MOUs are basically saying, you will enforce the law the way we want you to enforce the law, not the way the local people want you to enforce the law. And so yes, there does need to be defund the police, but it's maybe a little bit different. But I do agree with it. Plus, my family and many others that I have, that I've been associated with, have been tyrannized by the police forces, right? And I want to explain it just a little bit to you, okay? Principled, please understand this. Everybody might be different. We have different life experiences. We can still get along and understand, but please understand this, and that is, it's about a republic form of government. It's about, I should say, more about representation of the people. Because the people are the ones who have the policing and arresting power. We are the sovereign in this nation, actually in the world. That's the way God created it. We are the sovereign. So therefore, we delegate, definitely do not give up. We delegate policing and arresting power to certain people. But who do we, when it comes to law enforcement, do we the people delegate it to?
Sheriff.
That's right, the sheriff. And only the sheriff.
Amen.
So listen, when a sheriff deputy or the sheriff himself is acting out of line because he puts his knee on someone's neck and kills him, or maybe not even that bad, how do you hold that person accountable? You recall him, you kick him out, you replace him, and that's how it's done. But if he works for the city, how do you do it? There is no mechanism for the people to do it. If he works for the state and if he works for the feds. And I'm telling you, it was not designed that way. It was designed so that the people delegate it to the sheriff, and the sheriff deputizes, and the people can hold them directly accountable.
Correct.
Right? So we have all of these police forces, and we've become a police state, and they're all being funded. And you know where the city police, and I'm not saying that all the city police are bad. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that if they're a good officer, then they need to be taken out and put with the sheriff as a sheriff deputy. Okay, but that's a big step. But so when you ask a city police, where does he get his authority from? He'll say, well, I went to the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center and I got certified. And now I am a certified law enforcement, and therefore I have policing and arresting power. Now, where did the people give them that power? We didn't. And so I know that among this group right here, that this is a little bit of a conflict, right? It really is. But we have to be principled. We have to base our decisions on principle. And the way our founders designed it was for the sheriff to receive the policing and arresting power from the people and then deputize as many people as he needs to enforce the law.
By the consent of the governed.
Yes. By the consent of the governor. Thank you. Read the Declaration of Independence, right? Declaration of Independence. So even though it may be hard to like swallow that a little bit, I have to express that to you. And I am going to join the Black Lives Matter, and I'm going to hold up a Lavoy Finicum sign. I am going to support the defunding of unconstitutional police forces that are controlled by our federal government through money that they extract from the people and then trickle down for control. Because that's the only position that I can stand on. I'm not telling you you have to. I hope you don't ridicule me for it. But on the 21st, I'm going to join the Black Lives Matter in this effort. It may be a little different interpretation, but I think there's enough unity there between myself. I'm not representing the people's rights. I'm going there myself. If you want to come, great. But that is what I'm going to do, and that's why you'll see me there on the 21st. So, thanks. What's that? No, I don't think so. I was just invited, and he reached out to me, and I looked into it before I accepted to make sure that it was something that I could support. Because one thing I'm not going to go support is looting or destroying or anything like that. Right. And one thing that I will say that he said in his message to me was, come support the Black Lives Matter movement, not the Black Lives Matter organization. Yeah. And I think that probably says something. At least to me it said something. Anyway, let it lay where it will lay. But what's that? Yeah, I'm going to have a whole bunch of it.
Okay. That date, and I don't know if anyone else has seen this, but I believe Brad Little is selling land in the North Foothills to the city of Boise. I've tried to share this a little bit with people, and they're meeting on that day. The city council in Boise is meeting on little properties, and it's something like a $1.2 million deal that they're trying to purchase from Brad Little. I don't know the legalities on that, but if you guys would look on the City of Boise site, on their Facebook page, they sent out pictures on it of the land and the areas on Monday. So people that know about that know the legalities. I don't know if that's fair play for the governor to be selling to the city or what it is, but there is a deal that they're discussing on that day, and I think that if there's something wrong with that legally, which I don't know, that we should be involved.
Just be aware of it and involved. Well, we need someone obviously to look into that, to see if it's some backdoor deal or if it is legitimate. So thank you. Yes. Yes.
I just have a question. There's also people going to counter protest about the Denver line. So how are you going to manage both sides?
I'm not.
We don't
I'm
ourselves.
Well, and well, people again.
Yourself. How are you going to manage yourself?
Well, I am going to go down there, and I'm going to be respectful to everybody. I am going to, when I have opportunity, when it is appropriate, I'm going to voice my position like I just did here. I'm going to express that my family also, I spent 2 years in federal prison, and we have become a police state. And there's nothing more dangerous. I would much rather run into a bunch of street criminals and defend myself than run into a bunch of government criminals. And so, and when I spoke to the police, the Boise police liaison, I guess what he called, he asked me, he said, I don't know how you feel about me. I don't know if you feel like all police are bad or something. I said, I want you to understand something. I do not have a prejudice against anybody. I look at the people at what they do. And there are criminals among you in your police department, but there are also a lot of good people among you in your police department. And that's how I look at it. If someone is going to violate life, liberty, and property, I don't like them. They're a criminal, and it doesn't matter if they wear a badge or not. They're a criminal. And if someone wants to say, I'm a Black Lives Matter member or whatever they call themselves, and they want to destroy property or take life, they are a criminal. And I don't like them, at least for that. And so that is where my basically line is. It is not whether someone works for the police department or whether someone protests, with Black Lives Matter. It is not that. It is not if you're black or if you're white or Caucasian or Asian. It is not that. It is, are you a criminal or are you not? And a criminal is someone who violates life, liberty, or property. And to me, that is what is destroying our country. Allowing criminals both in government and on the street, if you will, to act in the violation of rights. That's why we formed ourselves. That's why, even though some didn't like the way I used anarchy, and I get it, but that's why, we're caught in the middle. We're caught in the middle. And so I hope that answers your question. I'm going to look at each person as a child of God and treat them such, and it doesn't matter whether they have a badge or whether they're holding a BLM sign. Yes.
I agree with everything you say. You gotta know there's people out there that's going to use this to cut the legs out of this movement.
I understand that. Well, first of all, this is not my movement. This is the people united together in areas. And if someone does that, and they most likely will, and it should make us stronger, you can be sure that they're of the same type of mind that is basic criminal, because they do not want us to unite. We have to understand that there is an enormous amount of black people that need their rights defended, right? They need to join us, and we're not going to draw that line. And if the whole organization fell apart because of that, because of those principles, then we're not an organization that should be an organization. That's just the way it is. And I'll tell you, I did not want to take this much time, but I'll tell you one story, and then I'm going to turn the time over to Don. I got serving cease and desist. I have to turn that off. Okay.
I'll skip it.
Then I'll turn it over to Don. So, in prison, I spent 2 years in federal prison. I never once was allowed to touch or hold my children or my wife. Never talk to them face to face the entire time. Okay, I spent half of the time in solitary confinement. And so I spent 155 days at once in solitary confinement. As you know, the law is not supposed to go beyond 30 days. But because I would not comply, I'm a terrible prisoner. Terrible prisoner. Because I would not comply, they just kept put me over and over. So, but what I learned there was amazing. They would put us in pods, and there's about 100 men in those pods. And when you first come in there, there's the black car, and all of in the area. And there's the whites, and there's the Native Americans, and there's the Hispanics, right? And it is disrespectful to walk through their area. And and you immediately see that the prison and the guards are actually in many ways, encouraging and even enforcing these cars, right? And it's not hard to figure out why, because you have 100 of supposed to be these federal hardened criminals, right, in one room, and then you've got a 21-year-old girl who's the guard. And at any time if they would unite, they could stand up and walk out of that prison. There's nothing that could stop them. But they keep them divided. They keep them fighting. They keep them, they even do it inside the prison. And prison is like a petri dish of society. And they are literally trying to divide us. They're trying to say those those blacks, you know, and those whites, and you know, and those Mexicans, and those, you know, I mean, they're trying to say that. They're trying to divide us because they know that at any time, if we were to unite, we could completely be free. Completely be free. And so that's what this is about. Black Lives Matter is funded by a white man, a rich one. Right? That's where they're getting their funding. And Black Lives Matter, or at least the black people, should understand that. And Black Lives Matter in its own, in the very term, even though I do support a lot of the movement. But Black Lives Matter, the term alone, is divisive. The name is divisive. Right? Alone. You don't think that they chose that name I mean, of course they chose that name for a reason. It was to divide the blacks against the whites. That's what it's for. So that our brothers and sisters that are children of God, just like us, won't unite with us. And they keep us divided. So, anyway, I think I've said enough about that. I hope you understand. It does not change a thing. Yes, back here.
Ammon, in light of what you just said, in a short summation, what would you say then is the key to why you are willing to work with the movement and not the organization? So therefore, what is the difference, in your opinion, between the two?
Well, again, I'm not going to identify or say something I don't really know, right? But what I'm saying is I know for a fact that there are millions of our black brothers and sisters that are not criminals, and that they want freedom just like us. They need freedom just like us. And yes, in a lot of ways, they haven't either seen it. And you know, my father was ridiculed, and again, here I go, I'm talking more. My father was ridiculed 5 years ago for saying that he felt like that in many ways the black community was still oppressed. And he asked the question, I wonder, this is a 74-year-old man, he says, I wonder if, and it sounds so racist, it was the wrong word, so I'm going to quote it, but what he said was, I believe, right. He asked the question, I wonder if they were better off back then. And he said it a little different than that, right? Because they were in families. But then you go, but they were enslaved. Yes, they were. It was terrible, right? But what's happening now? We're all being enslaved. We are. We're afraid to go to a store without a mask. It's not about race at this point. It is about tyranny.
I wanted to say one thing. The whole point of that is a defund the police rally. And the only constitutional police is the county sheriff. Yes. And the whole point of the police was to protect rights, not to oppress you. And so the police are the ones that are going to enforce everything that you don't want. And so don't be divided. Take the information. Defund the police doesn't mean we hate police, okay? Or that we don't want the county sheriff. We're going off of principles here. And if law enforcement is law enforcement, or is it there to protect your rights and your property? Right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that even today, well, actually, this morning, Caldwell Police Department came in and they acted completely appropriate.
Yes.
They were respectful. They were liaison between us and the board members.
Yes.
They didn't come in puffing their chest. They didn't come in trying to, force us and drag us out and all of that, which is what I've been used to be honest with you. And so, I mean, I look at them with some respect, but I do it individually. Look, you did not act like a criminal today. I don't know if you act like a criminal all the time or just today is different, but either way, you did not act like a criminal today, and I'm grateful for that. And they, and so it's not about, it's not about like a department or it's about an individual making decisions of whether they're going to be a criminal or not. So yes.
I only watched part of that this morning. Like, it was so amazing when you said to the top, so clear, and you said, look, your job is to support us. And it was like, right there, and you got it. And, yeah, because maybe you set it up for them, and their meals were like, holy crap.
Well, yeah.
You were so clear with them that you better think about this now, because your job is here, and it was amazing.
Well, and I wanted to make sure they understood that if they hurt me or arrested me, it was not going to be the Caldwell Police Department against VA Ammon Bundy, right? It was going to be officer so-and-so, or not even officer. It was going to be Mike Wilkinson, against Ammon Bundy in court, because that's the way I was going to make it happen, at least in my defense. Because we are individuals. We make our choices, right? That is why we're here on earth. To learn to make good choices. At least that's what I believe we're here on earth for. And so it goes for all of us. All of us.
Can I say
All right.
one thing is that I could be wrong, but I think that to defund the police, to fund the police, that whole piece that you talked about, I think in the Patriot movement, that is one of the last things that people, they don't know about. So we need to educate, like I seen Lori Marr on her profile thing that says like end qualified immunity. Before I stopped coming to your meetings, I didn't even know what qualified immunity was. I don't even understand this funding of police that you're talking about. This is new to me, and I would suppose, some people have been around this longer and they understand all this. But for me, I'm like, okay, so how does this work? So, I hear people talk about the sheriff. I'm like, okay, so the sheriff has all of this, but I grew up in Boise City my entire life, so the Boise police always had the power because I was just, working, making money. I didn't know this stuff. So you're educating us now, but can we continue to get educated so we understand that piece? Because a lot of us don't know that piece.
Yeah. Well, that's what we all have to do, we have to treat it like it's a multi-level marketing thing here now, right? You gotta go out and build some business. You're not selling a product, you're just selling a business, right? No. Anyway, we have to, you have to spread it because, we're one, I'm one person, Lori's one person, but now we just had, 200 people or close to in here that now can go out and say, hey, think about it this way. Like this is maybe something a little different. And also, think about it logically. Well, what about, we're a representative government, right? The people are the sovereign. Well, how do we give our policing and arresting power? Well, if we only give it to a sheriff. He's the only elected individual that we give policing and arresting power. We don't give it to mayors. We don't give it to anybody else. The president. We don't give it to the governor. We give policing and arresting power to the sheriff. That is it. Okay? So there was a hand over here, and then I really got to move on. Yeah. Okay, that's in my category. It's to do. Right? It actually is. We want, and we don't know what we'll name it, but there will be an education link or something at the top of the page, and it'll have different subjects with videos and all of that. And we could use all your help to do that. Okay. Don, the time is yours. I'm sorry that where'd you go, Don?
Right here, back here.
Oh, and I'm sorry that I went so long, but Don is going to close us, and I understand that it'll also be the closing prayer. Is that correct? So thank you, Don.